So you're thinking about starting your own online creative business. What is the first thing that you need? A website, a logo? Do you need to register your business? Do you need to grow a big social media audience? While you're going to need all of these things eventually, I think the first thing you need is going to surprise you. Welcome to A Creative Odyssey. I'm Ryde. I'm a designer, an entrepreneur, and online educator obsessed with all things design, quilting, and creative business. Whether you're a seasoned quilter or you're just starting out, whether you're passionate about design and textiles, or whether you're a creative business geek who loves to nerd out on all the moving parts that go into making a creative business thrive, you are in the right place. I'm excited to share insights from my creative odyssey with you as I navigate design, creativity, and growing an online business on this journey as a creative entrepreneur. Are you ready to explore the possibilities of design and discover the world of creative business? It's time to embark on a creative odyssey. Welcome to this episode of A Creative Odyssey. In today's episode, I am expanding on what I've been covering in the past couple of episodes here on this channel. I have been talking about my design, write, and sell framework. This is the framework that I use to streamline my business and quilt pattern creation process as well. And it also happens to be the underlying principles that really form my 8-week program, Quilt Design Code. If you haven't checked out those episodes yet, make sure you check the show notes for the links or click on the videos here below on YouTube. So far, what I've covered is the design and write phases. And today, what I really want to talk about is something that might be on your mind: how to turn those amazing quilt designs, those professional PDF patterns into a thriving online venture. Because if you're serious about starting to grow a creative business with your quilt patterns, then after that designing and writing phase of the quilt pattern, we've got to start selling it, right? So, here's the deal. You have poured your heart and your soul into creating these stunning quilt patterns. The colors pop, all of the stitches are dancing, everything looks fantastic. Your artistic spirit's on fire. But now comes that tricky part, finding a way to share and sell your patterns online. You are not alone in this struggle. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the solution, this ticket to creative liberation. It's about embracing the online world and taking that first step to growing your creative business. Nope, it's not creating a website. It's not starting with your logo. It's not even registering your business the first thing you need to do. It's not even growing a big social media audience necessarily. It's growing an email list. While you might be thinking, wait, what? I don't even know the first thing about that. I've got you. In today's episode, we're going to be talking through that first step to start growing an audience of people who you can share your creativity with. So why do we want to grow an email list? You might have heard it said before, but anything that you grow on social media, it doesn't belong to you. It's like you're building a castle on a rented property, right? On rented land. Any audience, anything that you've got going on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or wherever you've got your social media following, you don't own that. Tomorrow, they could block you out of their Facebook account. They could shut down the whole platform. You have no control over that, and you don't want to lose all of that audience that you've managed to build up there. So what you want to do is you want to move those people off of social media and you want to grow an email list. This really allows you to connect with quilters from all over the planet. It allows you to communicate with them in a much more personal way, a much more direct way, and it allows you to really control that interaction. You know it, I know it. Algorithms on social media platforms change every 2 minutes. Seems like anyway. These places, we have no control over who gets to see our information, how our information is delivered to other people. When you grow an email list, you have much more control over how you're able to communicate with your audience, okay? Imagine now somebody discovers your website or they're looking through social media and they see your amazing post. They're clicking around, they get blown away by your patterns. They can't wait to get started on their next quilting project. They want to really get in touch with you. How can you capture this person's interests and get them to exchange their email address with you so you can keep in touch with them and start to really forge a connection with them? Well, inside the guide, 7 Steps to Grow a Quilt Pattern Design Business, there's going to be a link to that below this video here on YouTube or in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. You're going to find a flow, exactly what you'll need to set up in order to start building an email list. And following these steps that are laid out there, you're going to be well on your way to growing that email list, connecting with people from all over the world who share your passion for quilting and who love your style and your patterns. Okay, so let's get into the details a little bit here. I know that a lot of people have a little bit of a tech fear, a fear of tech overwhelm. I want to let you know that ultimately you're going to need to start out with just one fundamental piece of tech for this, and that is an email service provider. Now you might be thinking, what's an email service provider, Ali? I've never ever heard of this. If you've heard of something like MailChimp, if you've heard of something like Aweber, ConvertKit, Flowdesk, there's a whole lot of different email service providers out there. If you scroll down to any email that you receive from somebody, oftentimes you might see a little, created using whatever platform down there. That is the email service provider. This is the tool that we can use to capture the email addresses of our audience and to be able to send them emails. So if you're on my email list is managed by an email service provider. Your information is stored securely by that email service provider, enabling me to send you an email to let you know when I've got a pattern coming out, to let you know when one of my courses is launching, to send you all of the good stuff that comes into your inbox, like the tips, letting you know that this video is available for you to come and watch it online so that you can get some more information from me about growing a creative business using quilt patterns. So this fundamental piece of tech is about getting in touch with your audience, connecting with your audience. And this is something that we need to get in place to start to build our email list. So starting out on a creative business, the first thing we need to start thinking about is we need to grow an email list. And the fundamental piece of tech we need for that is an email service provider. Inside the guide, 7 Steps to Grow Your Quilt Pattern Design Business, you will find a flow chart of all of the different steps you're going to need to take to set this up. I'm going to talk through them here briefly, but you also just know that you have that written reference to go back to as well. Head to aliryde.com/guide and you'll be able to download this guide with the flow chart inside it so that you don't miss any of these steps. Just before we get into this, I wanted to talk a little bit about this mindset around tech. Like I mentioned, a lot of people have this kind of fear of, I'm going to have to learn all these new software programs. I'm going to have to find out how to use all these apps online. How does it all work? I'm not very tech savvy, all these kinds of things. Just take a breath. Don't let the tech overwhelm you. Don't make things complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. So we want to keep things simple. We want to make it easy. A lot of platforms these days set it up for you so that it's literally like a plug and play. They've got tutorials. There's all kinds of different videos there for you to watch to set it up step by step by step. Don't get overwhelmed. Just take it step by step. That is the thing to do. Baby steps, one step at a time. You don't need to learn the entire internet in one day. You just need to learn the next step that you need to take to start to grow your creative business. And your first step is to research email service providers. You can Google it and say, best email service provider 2024, for example. Look that up online, get a comparison table going between the different providers, look at things like pricing, look at things like deliverability, look at things like, ease of use or reviews on which platforms are the easiest to use, and look at things like what service do they provide? Are they able to have these? Do they have like a chat help service? Do they have a phone line service? Do they have a help desk where you have to email in? What are those live? Do they have a live chat option as well? See what that service is that they're going to be able to help you to get set up as well. So those are the things that I would consider when thinking about my email service provider. Start simple. This is probably one of the big things to think about. Just start simple. You're not going to need an email service provider to start out, which has all the entire bells and whistles of everything that you might need if you say you have a list of 50,000 or 1 million subscribers, okay? Just start simple. Choose one and move on with that, okay? So the first steps that I really want you to think about taking are choosing your email service provider. Step 1, research email service providers. Then step 2, choose an email service provider. Step number 3 is set up your email service provider. Watch the tutorials and get set up. Those are the 3 steps that you need to take. And here's a bonus tip for you right now as well. Put those 3 steps down in a calendar and put a date next to them. Give yourself a deadline for each of those steps. This is how you're going to get things done. Like I mentioned, just take it step by step by step. Start simple and get this piece of tech set up that's going to help you then to start to grow your email list. Okay? So this email service provider is where you are going to store your email list, and you're going to capture and store the audience email addresses that you're capturing, okay? Now, how do we get these email addresses in the first place? Well, what we want to do is we want to create a valuable piece of content that somebody will be willing to exchange their email for, okay? So this is called a lead magnet or a freebie or an opt-in. It's likely that you've gone through this process yourself before when you signed up for something like, I don't know, a free guide, like my free guide, which you can find at aliryde.com/guide, or any coupon or discount code you've ever signed up for where you filled out your email address and you receive an email with that code. This is fundamentally what we're creating here, okay? That's all managed through an email service provider. So how do we set this up? What are all the steps for this? Don't we need a website for all of this stuff? No. Landing page is something that you can set up through an email service provider. Okay, Ali, so what's a landing page? This is kind of that first element that you're going to need to set up so that you can capture somebody's email address. So a landing page is a standalone web page. It's just a single page, which normally has like a description of what you're signing up for, and it has a place for you to leave, at a minimum, your email address. Sometimes people ask for your name as well. That's totally fine too. You can ask for that. This landing page, this is a single standalone web page. And no, you do not have to have your own website for this. Inside the majority of email service providers, they have templates for landing pages that you can use, and you can fill it out and just start capturing people's email addresses there. Once you have your landing page set up, you have a link for that, a URL, and that link is the link that you're going to start to share, say, on social media with people that you know. If you do any kind of like a in-person event, a market, a workshop, or you work at a local quilt shop or anything like that, get that URL out to people, get that link out to people so that they can sign up for your email list. Now, in order to entice people to sign up for our email list, we want to give them something in exchange for that email address, right? We want to give something in return for them signing up for us. Oftentimes that looks like a free guide. It might be a free pattern, a very basic free pattern. It might be a discount code or a coupon for your next quilt pattern, okay? So this is something that you're going to need to decide on when you are creating your lead magnet, is who am I trying to attract onto my email list? So we want to think about who that audience is. Now, I talked a little bit about this in the last episode where I talked about writing our quilt pattern. You know, who are we writing our quilt pattern for? Is it a beginner quilter? Is it a more advanced quilter? Is it somebody who really loves applique? Is it somebody who only loves modern quilting? So thinking about that type of person that you are writing your quilt pattern for, who you're designing for, that is your ideal client. That is the audience that you want to attract. So what is something valuable for them that they would find really valuable? If I'm an applique quilter and I'm just starting out in applique and I've seen this amazing beginner applique pattern, maybe I'm interested in signing up to get a guide on the 10 tools you need as a beginner applique quilter. Or maybe if I'm a modern quilter, I struggle a little bit with color and I want to know more about how I can confidently choose colorways for my quilts that I'm making. Okay, so maybe there's a free guide on, how to choose colors for your next quilt pattern, something like that. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can just create a simple document in a Word or a Google document, for example, and you can simply share that with the people who sign up for your email list. So that's our lead magnet. That's our opt-in. That's our freebie. That's the piece of valuable content that we want to share with somebody when they sign up for our email list in exchange for their email address. Okay. So once we have our email service provider chosen, this is the place where we're going to capture and store the email addresses. We want to set up a landing page, which means a standalone web page, and you can do this through your email service provider. We have our landing page. Somebody can enter in their email address. We know what our lead magnet or our freebie is. We've designed this. We've created this. We've stored it somewhere like on Dropbox, on Google Drive. We have it somewhere that we can then send people to that and give them a link to download that piece of information. Okay. Then what we need to do is we need to set up an email automation so that the people who put their email address into our landing page will get an automatic email sent from our email service provider to download their lead magnet, whether it's a coupon, whether it's a discount code, whether it's a free guide, whether it's a downloadable pattern, any of those sorts of things, you can set that up, okay? So inside our email service provider, we can set up an automation sequence. It's sometimes called automation. It's called a sequence. It's called a nurture sequence sometimes as well. You want to set that up, a series of follow-up emails, and you set those up inside your email service provider, sending those to the people who start to sign up for your email list. And you can set this all up in the background. It can go on automatic, so you don't have to physically reply every time somebody's signing up to your email list, okay? So these are some of the steps that go into growing your email list. This first piece of tech that we need to set up when we start to think about selling our quilt patterns online, okay? So I've talked about in previous videos, the designing phase, the writing phase. Now we're in this sell phase. And as part of that sell phase, we need to start to set up our email list so we can start growing an audience of people who are interested in our quilt patterns and purchasing our quilt patterns from us, okay? So the first piece of tech, like I mentioned, that we need to set up is our email service provider. And from that, you can start to create a whole sequence whereby you deliver automatically a lead magnet or a freebie or an opt-in to the new people who are signing up for your email list, okay? Inside the guide, 7 steps to grow your quilt pattern design business, head to aliryde.com/guide to get your copy. There is a full flow list of all of these steps inside there so that you can follow along with exactly what I've been talking about here in this episode, okay? Now, the next thing that we're going to need to look at, the second piece of tech that I want you to start to think about for selling your quilt patterns in this sell phase is an e-commerce platform, okay? So check out things like Squarespace, Shopify, Wix. These are all the types of platforms that you can use to set up very simply a plug and play e-commerce site for you to start selling your patterns, okay? This doesn't mean you need to code. It doesn't mean you need to create a website. It doesn't mean you need to do anything else like that. After setting up your email service provider and starting to grow your email list, the very next thing that you need to think about is your platform to sell your patterns on, okay? You can also set up a shop on something like Etsy, for example, if you want to go through the Etsy route as well. Or if you want to set up your own standalone shop, you can do that through Squarespace, Shopify, or Wix. Any of these e-commerce platforms that allow you to set up shop where you can start selling your patterns, okay? There is a lot more information like this inside the guide that I shared with you here. Head to aliryde.com/guide to get your copy, and you can start to grow your very own creative business following these steps today. I want to invite you to take some action here. Like I mentioned, I think that the very first step you need to take is to research some email service providers. Step number 2 is about making a decision on which email service provider you want to go with. And step number 3 is setting up your email service provider, watching those tutorials and getting it all set up. Bonus points for putting a deadline on yourself and setting a date in your calendar to get these 3 steps done by. I really invite you to take some action on this here. Now, next week, in the next episode, I'm going to be jumping into the very next part of this sell phase. I'm going to extend it a little further. We're going to talk about the details of a pattern launch and how you can leverage this to really get results when you're launching your quilt pattern. This is also part of that sell phase of the design, write, and sell framework that I use. And I want to ask you to become a subscriber if you're not already. Subscribe here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on that next episode where I'm going to be covering all of the details to start to launch your quilt pattern. This is a mechanism that we can use to start to build buzz and excitement about our very unique quilt pattern design that we have come up with and that we're excited to get into the hands of quilters everywhere, right? Becoming that successful quilt pattern writer isn't just about creating the beautiful designs. It's also about putting them out there and making that splash online. The possibilities are really endless. I can't wait to see you taking action on this here as well. Stay tuned for the very next episode where I'm going to be sharing those practical steps with you to get your pattern launched. In the meantime, stay curious, keep creating, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Don't forget, for any of the links that you heard me mention here in this episode, you can head to the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, or check out the description down below this YouTube video. I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye for now.